that even healthcare practitioners don't know the difference between functional and regenerative medicine. And I think that's like, if we think of like medicine and healthcare kind of in stages almost, like that's kind of the later, like it's definitely not where we started.
No.
But it's where we're headed, right?
Without question. Like it really is, I mean, at the moment, everyone is talking about AI, they're referencing it, they're discovering it, they're finding out what it can do. And no one's saying that this is a 5-minute fad. Like this is a game changer thing. This is going to be as big a significant thing in our lives as the invention of the internet, right? And you're not getting any voices dissenting on that. And regenerative medicine is the same in the medical sphere, right? It is as big a paradigm shift, a new pathway, a different way of thinking about it, as all the previous iterations have been, that it's the cutting edge where it's going to go, and it won't ever be the same again. And going to your doctor will be a completely different experience in 10 years' time than it is now. So it might be worth, for the benefit, because we know what the pathway is. So let's maybe just rewind a little bit from our conversation and start talking about how healthcare has evolved.
Yeah, I think it's really at the foundation of how we view health and wellness is the approach that we're taking. So we have the more traditional methods, right, which were more Eastern, which were more focused on healing the body naturally, right? But our understanding of what was going on in the body at that time was kind of limited. It was limited. We still had a good idea, but it was still limited. But we were off in a lot of ways, right? Like we were talking about like the humors of the body, right? Like
right, yeah.
But it was like, oh, you have too much bile, or you have too much this, or you have too much that. Like your humors are out of balance. Like in not that long ago in women, they would the wandering uterus was a thing. Like where they thought that like women who had a lot of anxiety and like it was because their uterus was just wandering around their body, right? Like, so we've been off, right, in the past. And then as we started to like learn more and
let's talk more about like bloodletting and leeches and like, I mean, there was some pretty kooky stuff that they've got a grain of truth in there, but then it just went in all the wrong directions. So I think the wandering uterus is a pretty good example of that one.
That one like still offends me. I'm like, excuse me. So then there was, I mean, the really big shift was the realization of germs, and then came antibiotics.
Right, the whole microbe thing.
Yeah, and that actually took like, I didn't know this until recently, but that actually took several hundreds of years for the actual realization that there were microbes and germs to then kind of go into using that in practice. So then we had kind of that phase, which I guess is kind of phase 2, was like, okay, now we need to like work on minimizing germs, and we have antibiotics and microbes and kind of all these things. And that made obviously a big difference in mortality because you're able to stop a lot of deaths. But interestingly,
who was the Austrian doctor who said, oh, we should probably wash our hands between delivering babies and doing like autopsy?
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you think?
He was ridiculed for that. He was ridiculed. Yeah. They were like, how dare you say we need to wash our hands after the autopsies? Even though a huge percentage of the
data was so strongly in favor of his discovery, and yet the whole medical community poo-pooed him, shunned him, ostracized. I think he died in a mental home because he was just like broken.
Yes. Yeah. And it's so interesting. That's like such a through line of every stage that kind of, I mean, it's kind of simplistic, but if we think of it kind of like stages or phases, like the people at the forefront were ridiculed, were shunned, were laughed at, were shamed. I mean,
yeah, it's tough being a trailblazer. Like it is, I mean, the number of times I'm not comparing myself to being on that level or have suffered persecution in the same way, but certainly there's been a lot of people like, why do you bother with animals so much? Like, why is that? Just do this. Be a vet, be a teacher, be something for humans, have a real job, and then, you can play with animals on the side. Or, no, you're crazy. Animals don't have emotions, right? When I was a kid, I was like, yeah, it's obvious they've got emotions, right? And I wrote my thesis paper on, in neuroscience on the secondary emotion, like the neurological, I can't remember the title. Anyway, basically the neurological foundations of secondary emotions in mammals, right? And, and I really had to push for that to be an accepted topic, and now there's emotion everywhere in the literature for animal welfare, but it was nowhere, and then it was exploding. I was just on the front of that, but I got a lot of flack for that. And it's the same with talking about regenerative medicine. People are just like, it's science fiction, you're just in dreamland. It's like,
yeah,
just wait.
I heard this kind of saying recently. I don't think it's like I said, it was this guy that I know was kind of saying, that was kind of pondering what makes an innovator. And he said something that is like really, really stuck with me. He said that that you're headed towards innovation. That innovation is happening when you have a competent person with a crazy idea. And I freaking love that. I wrote it on a sticky note and I put it on my computer and I look at it every day, because that's so true. I mean, even when you look at like big tech right now, right, with Airbnb and, Uber and like all of those, you see it everywhere. When someone has an idea for a different model, whether it's health, whether it's tech, whether it's whatever, people lose their minds and then it catches on. So
yeah.
It's no different.
The number, honestly, it's so funny you use that quote. The number of times I've been told in my life, you are far too smart to be that dumb, right? You are far too intelligent to believe, to hold to that opinion, to believe this thing.
That's a compliment. It's because you're an innovator.
It's just like, wow, okay.
I'd say you're pretty competent. You have some crazy ideas. So here we are.
Here we are. Anyway, where were we in our history trail?
Okay, so you have the kind of focus on antibiotics and germs and all of that. And that reduced mortality significantly. But it didn't extend. It didn't do anything for anything else. Like it was really solely focused on that. So we had this focus on, let's not die young from these things that can be prevented. So then we moved into kind of this next phase where we are now, I would say, which is now that we're not, dying of at 17 because of whatever, cholera.
Yeah.
In most countries, we're moving into, okay, so we're living longer, but we're getting really sick. Yeah. Let's keep you alive with these different medications, but we're waiting so long. We're not preventing them. We're saying, oh, now you have heart disease, take a statin. Now but you have,
instead of dying from it, we'll keep you alive.
Yes.
And not heal you.
So the diseases we're getting are different because we're living longer, and we're extending your lifespan, but not your health span, right? You're not healthy. You're just living longer. So we're not doing anything to prevent. We're focusing on just managing once it's there. Even the diseases that are there, we're often not focusing on reversing the pathology. And then we're not doing anything actively to kind of think beyond about how we can actually regenerate the damage that's been done that comes with living. And so now you have these two other categories. The one is functional medicine, which is, let's look at the root cause, let's be preventative, let's use lifestyle and natural modalities and all of the things. And, many functional practitioners also use medications too. It's not necessarily off the table, but essentially we're looking at address the root cause, extend health span, extend quality of life. And then you have regenerative medicine, which is, how would you explain regenerative medicine?
Well, in a sense, like functional medicine, it works proactively as well as reactively. So you can be doing regenerative lifestyle protocols, if you like, that are going to so your body has its baseline or its homeostasis point where it's functioning and doing the things that it's supposed to do. And as we get older, the functionality on that decreases, just because age acquires greater damage of toxic buildup, of free radical damage, of chronic inflammation, wear and tear, like the list goes on, right? So you can, with functional medicine, I tend to think of it as you're restoring where homeostasis is off and bringing it back in and allowing things to operate. But regenerative medicine sort of takes it that next step up. It's like, now let's start to exchange your old for new. So we're staying in homeostasis. You use it preventatively, but now we're going to optimize you. Now we're going to make you in your prime. You know, we always sort of think about, you know, sort of somewhere between 20 and 25 is the physical prime of a human in their lifespan, in terms of all of the things that start to decline haven't done yet. They're peaking. Your growth is done, and so you're at the full form, and everything's still relatively young, so that everything's optimized, right? So it's recapturing that no matter what age you are. So it's homeostasis plus, you know, it's optimization. And now you can use regenerative medicine, obviously, to heal a particular thing. So then it's that reactive kind of thing. Okay, so sports injuries is a really common one. So we'll use stem cell therapy instead of having a knee reconstruction, right? Knee reconstruction, even with keyhole surgery, it's going to take you out of the game for several months with inflammation, healing, swelling. You know, your muscles are not going to be being used. You're going to have to rest the joint. Rehabilitation is going to take you so long. You've got physiotherapy to do and the whole thing, right? So you're out of the game for, let's say, 6 months. Stem cell therapy, you're out of the game for maybe 48 hours, maybe, right? Depending on, you know, if you get some swelling, but you know, like, it's literally. And then you have this sort of peak impact straight away, and then it sort of plateaus a little bit, but it's continually going up and up and up over several months after the therapy, while all of those excuse me, growth factors and stem cells are generated, and a whole bunch of things that are going on in there. So it's not like you take a normal medicine, for example, right? And it goes in and it goes to work in your body for maybe 8 hours, and then your body gets rid of it. Stem cell therapy is completely not like that at all. It's another whole different thing. And you are getting youthful in the process. So it's next level.
Yeah, that's a really interesting way to think about it in terms of how they complement each other. Functional medicine is addressing bringing the body back into balance, and regenerative medicine is kind of taking it to the next step and actually almost aging in reverse.
Not almost, actually.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
There will come a point, and it's not far off, there will come a point when we can utilize the modalities and therapies and things that we understand to rewind 1 year for every year you age. So effectively, you're now in age stasis. You're in age balance. You are not going to get older no matter how much older you get. I know that's a weird sentence to say. You're not going to get biologically older despite your chronology increasing. And in many cases, I mean, anyone in longevity has heard of Dr. David Sinclair, right? And he's, I think, 54, 55, something like that. But his biological age is 34. Like, he's literally 20 years younger in his body, in the way his body is performing. He hasn't got down to 25 yet, that kind of golden moment that we talked about a minute ago. But to be 55 on the outside and that many candles on your cake, but be 35 on the inside, that's dramatic.
Yeah.
That's really significant. His metabolism is going to be going faster. He's going to be burning cleaner. He's going to be healing faster. He's going to be any kind of decline of his sensory organs, hearing going, eyesight going, frailty stepping in, bone density decreasing, muscle mass diminishing, heart valves not function, like the whole thing in a young, like, it's amazing, right? And what's the downside? Right? You don't have pain and suffering with it. You don't have to have invasive, operations or whatever else. Depending on what you use, you may have a needle prick as you're injecting stem cell therapy in. You may be in a laser therapy thing, and it's low light lasers. It's not like burning, it's not like cauterizing lasers. It's activating other things in the body. It might be using ozone therapy or hyperbaric oxygen therapy, increasing the amount of oxygen in your body, which is going to have a whole lot of longevity and youthifying factors as well. I mean, that's where one of the reasons why all this deep breathing exercise, all your Wim Hofs and other bits is so powerful, right? Because it's the free hack version of having hyperbaric oxygen therapy to an extent, right? Because you're just bringing in a whole lot more of the fuel that your body requires to be in peak performance.
Yeah, to your point, there are so many incredible advanced technologies that we're now identifying. You listed several of them that are going to really advance the field of regenerative medicine. But at the same time, there's so much that you can do where these boundaries are crossed between functional and regenerative and preventative, because again, we have the same foundation, right? Let's take like nutrition, for example. If you're eating in a way that nourishes your body and is right for you and is sustainable, then not only are you going to prevent diseases, but you're going to bring the body back into balance in a variety of ways, whether that's your gut health, your immune system, your connective tissue, whatever. And you're also going to help to regenerate areas that were maybe not optimized. So at the root, the 7 pillars that we're always talking about cross these boundaries. But then if you want to go further, which is kind of the step 2, right? You can't do all the amazing things if you don't have the foundation. But then if you're wanting to go the next step, then you can go into more things like, advanced functional testing and therapies and regenerative therapies. But like, you have to start with that foundation and then move forward in whatever way. And it's really individualized based on, right? We talked about like creating that vision. Was that last week you talked about that? Creating that vision, that health vision of where do you want to be when you're 60, 70, 80, 90, 125, and based on that vision, then you can come up with that strategy and use the tactics that are going to help you best get there. But 7 pillars, got to start there.
Got to start there. Yeah. Because you can't, if you're not in homeostasis, if you're not in balance, if you're not functioning properly, how can you do it better? You've got to have the baseline.
Right. Exactly. So this is why we're always talking about, and for folks who are listening who don't know the 7 pillars, this is why we're always bringing back to them, because they're at the foundation of everything. And within each of them, there's so much there. I think that's what people don't realize is like when you say nutrition, like there's so much there. It's not just what you eat, but it's how you eat it. It's when you eat it. It's, individualized based on you and your health, right? So there's nutrition, species appropriate diet. Again, this is across species. There is your sleep and your hormones, your movement, your alignment, your detoxification, microbiome, natural environments, mental health. These are the 7 pillars. And within each one, I mean, our whole coaching program, like, how long is our coaching program? Months and months and months and months. And I feel like it's still like kind of just scratching the surface. Mm-hmm. And I think that might be one of the biggest misconceptions that people have is like, oh, I'm already doing well in these areas. And it's like, it's great if you're already starting, for sure, 110%, like you're already ahead of the game. But unfortunately, it's not enough, because most people tend to focus on just a couple areas and not all of them, when we know that they work synergistically and they have that compounding effect. So that's why we flesh it out so much, right? We spend a whole month in coaching, in our small group coaching on each of these pillars. And in Rejuvenate, in our membership, we kind of tease one out and do kind of a broad overview, because depending on where you're at, you might be like in a place of, I don't even know what this is. Like, I just need a broad overview. Or you're like, no, I'm crushing it. Like, take me to the next level. And that's when we're like, okay, here's a whole month on it. But you have to kind of find where you're at in that journey to identify.
And I think as well, it's not like this is the first time people have heard nutrition makes a really big difference. Make sure your diet is right. We've heard movement, exercise, nutrition, right? And people glaze over. And I don't blame them, because most of the time when you're hearing these things, it's very generic. It's very dictatorial, like you must do this, you mustn't do that. And it takes all the fun out of life, and nobody wants that at all. Everyone wants maximum fun. And this is one of the things I'm always promoting in everything, is bring in the joy, right? Because if you're not joyful about it, if you don't have a dream attached to it, if you're not excited about it, it's not going to mean anything to you. It's just going to be hard work. And then you're going to give up, and you're not going to get any benefit, but also feel frustrated. So you're worse off. So attach everything to a excitement and to a vision. And this is because I felt the same way. I was like, oh, nutrition, golly, I've heard that since, wherever. And there's so much argument in the space. And I'm just so bored by all the argument. Why do you have to argue all the time? Why can't we just say, here's an amazing fact, here's an amazing fact, here's an amazing fact. What do you like? What excites you by that? What do you like to eat? What do you think works best for you? Okay, here's some foundational pegs to hook stuff to, and then you build your own from there, right? If you want help building your own from there, there are plenty of people, including us, who can help you do that, right? But if you don't want that, go away and run. That's absolutely fine. Let's not get boring about it, and let's not get bitter about it and fight all the time. And it's the same with exercise. Oh, well, you should do it this way, you should do it that way. Exercise in the morning, exercise after food, exercise with a protein shake, don't exercise with a protein shake, run this way, run that. It's just like, people are like, ugh, I hate all of it now, because it just feels like hard work, conflict, and boring. And I want to kind of dispel that myth, because, as you say, Katie, in each pillar that we work with, the depth of information, how much is inside each pillar, is scary. Like, this is why we've condensed it down into something really simple to work with, right? And if you can do layer 1 in this pillar, great. And if you want to do layer 953, don't worry, 953 is there too. Somewhere between 1 and 953 is something that's going to excite you and engage you. And you'll go, oh, found my thing. Now I want to do this. Now I want to engage with that. And nobody's there telling you, that's, well, okay, they probably are, but we're not there telling you that's wrong, make all the fun go away, cut all the things out, you're wrong, we're right, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's just the wrong approach. And I get very excited about both functional and regenerative medicine for the power of what it can bring, which is freedom and joy, right? At the end of the day, it's freedom and joy. And to me, that's an exciting thing to have in life, to be able to say, I'm going to do that because I like that, and my body's going to support me doing that. Now I'm seeing friends having fun, learning a new skill, being active, being outside, whatever that happens to be. But freedom and joy is the, well, why do you do this? Well, for freedom and joy, not because I really want to sit there and get nitpicky about my life or anybody else's life. How many calories have you got there? Did you get broccoli as well? Oh my gosh, did you walk 10,000 steps? No, right? If you want to do it that way, that works for you. But I'm about, let's work with the foundational principles, find the bit that's interesting and exciting for you, make that come alive, and then enjoy freedom and joy.
Exactly. It's the outcome. That's what, like, there are people who enjoy the kind of data, and they're like sciencey, and they're like, yes, I'm gonna like aim to do all, close my Apple rings and on my watch, and like get the steps and like count whatever. And then there are people who are like, no. But either way, the primary goal is the outcome.
Right.
It's not the things. The things get you there. And for people who are, I think it does take a lot of self-reflection and self-awareness to acknowledge that we're all going to age, we're all going to die, and to take ownership of saying, I know what I want my life to look like. And
I know what my journey I know what finishing line I want, and I know what kind of life I want and for how long I want it, and I have control over a good chunk of that.
Exactly. But if you can connect with that outcome, that freedom and joy, whatever that looks like for you, that's what's going to get you there. And yeah, if you enjoy the process, that's always a part of what we do, right? Whenever we're working with someone, it's like, how is this going to be sustainable? Because if you don't enjoy it, it's not going to be sustainable. But so it has to be somewhat. But the motivation comes and goes. It's that attachment to the outcome that's really going to help keep you on track. So anyway, we got off track from the different like phases of medicine and healthcare, but I think at the end of the day, that is where it's come. It was like, let's not die young, and then it was like, let's extend life even more, and now it's like, hold on, let's do all of the things. Let's improve quality and quantity of life so that we can like,
this is the best time to be alive, I guess, in the sense of what's possible for health, right? Because you literally can now have your cake and eat it too, right? Because it's not focusing on just not dying at 30 of cholera or gangrene or, I don't know, cancer or something, right? Because that happened too. And it's not now living to you 83 with a terrible heart condition and pain and on 16 medications. It's let's help you live many, many more years in a state of freedom and joy, functionality, optimization, if you want to go that far. And that will naturally make you live longer, but every year is going to be great fun to be around.
Yeah. That's the
have your cake and eat it too. And I will have my cake and eat it too, because I like cake. And even though that's bad for you, it's not bad for you, right? If done the right way. So
I'm more of a cookie kind of girl, but that's another story. Let's wrap it there. So a couple things coming down the pipeline. We are hosting another workshop next week. Yes, next week on.
Wow,
I know. Next week on the Thursday, we're going to be sharing more details with you about that today and over the course of the next week through email. So stay tuned. This is one you really, really don't want to miss. We'll be announcing the topic later today. So see you guys tomorrow for another Live and Unplugged. Bye.
Bye.